How's it going, everybody? Thanks again for joining me for another video. Today, I want to share 5 strategies with you that I've seen used over and over again throughout the years as a real estate broker here in Los Angeles that will help you maximize your final sales price when you're selling a home, especially now in the market that we're in, where a lot of areas are experiencing some weakness, a lot of inventory on the market, and in some cases, falling prices. So stay tuned. I think this information is going to be very valuable. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that you want to do to maximize your final sales price is to increase both the curb appeal as well as the appeal that a buyer experiences when walking through the front door. Sometimes the best money you can spend is a few dollars to make it look nice when somebody drives up, and also when they walk through that front door, that initial experience they have a lot of times will color the feel that they have about the property overall. And as we know, first impressions are everything, and this is one of those things where a little bit of money can go a really long way. So this is where doing a little bit of painting on the outside or on the inside, maybe doing some basic landscaping in the front of the house, and making sure things are clean and clutter-free when somebody walks in are small things that you can do that can have a huge impact on how much you end up getting in the offer. And you don't really have to spend a ton of money here on upgrades or anything like that to make a huge impact. And I can't tell you the number of buyers I've been with over the years where we pull up at a property and they just take one look at it and they say, "Mike, I'm not interested, let's go." And so just like that, the seller completely missed out on an opportunity for a potential buyer by not taking the time, putting in that little bit of extra effort to make the property look as attractive as possible. I know it's sad, but some people are shallow and they like a head turner. And real quick, if you need help selling a property here in Greater Los Angeles or North Orange County, and you want to make sure you get every dollar you can, reach out to me. My contact information is down below. And also, if you're looking to buy a home and you want to get a great deal and take advantage of these slightly lower rates that we've been experiencing, reach out to me on that as well. I'm here to help. All right, let's jump back in. The next thing is a small thing, but it can actually have a massive impact on how much you get for your home. And that is a deep cleaning. Have you ever had a really dirty and grimy car that you haven't cleaned for a while, that you took in for a full detail, and they ended up getting every speck of dust out of the car? They got all the grime and gunk off, everything from under the seats and from the sides, all the stuff off the paint, and you came back and you were just blown away because it looked like a brand new car the day that you drove it off the showroom floor? Well, that's exactly what you want to do with your home before you sell it. Again, I can't tell you the number of homes that I've shown to buyers where we walk in and it just looks dirty. It's not clean. There's nasty stuff all over the baseboards. There's mold around the kitchen sink or in the bathrooms, around the toilet or the sink or in the shower. Maybe the carpets are stained or the curtains are stained, or there's just stains on the walls and nasty stuff that could have easily been touched up or painted over. And these are the kinds of things that give a buyer a bad impression, and a lot of times will cause them just to walk away because they won't feel comfortable with the home, or if they do decide to move forward, they're going to be concerned that it's going to cost them a lot of money to deal with all this stuff. And so they're going to want to write a significantly lower offer, or they're just going to be less excited and aggressive overall at completing the transaction and more likely to end up canceling on you. And the good news is you can actually hire companies that actually do deep cleaning services. Now, I'm not talking about your typical maid service that charges a couple $100. These companies are generally more expensive, maybe $500 to $1,000, and they use different techniques like steam, pressure washers, different types of chemicals, and they're really experts at removing a lot of these nasty things that you see in homes that really make them look much more attractive for potential buyers. And you'd really be amazed at how much more money you can get by simply making the home just look as clean and tidy as possible, even if it's not completely renovated or fully remodeled. This is one of those things where spending $1,000 upfront could lead to you netting $20,000 or $30,000 more on the sale price of your home. So don't miss out on this big money tip. The next thing that you can do to really make sure you get as much money as possible for your home is be willing to give to receive. And what I mean by that is that selling a home can obviously be stressful. And I've worked with many sellers over the years that once they kind of get into the process, they're just feeling a lot of stress and they kind of close the shutters a little bit on their thinking and the way they see things. And they're really not open and reasonable and thoughtful on how they can make a deal and work with a buyer to ultimately help a buyer get what they want or need, such that they end up getting what they want or need. You're often presented with these opportunities to help a buyer out a little, where you end up with an asymmetric payoff on your side as the seller. For instance, maybe a buyer comes along and they need a little help with closing costs, or they're asking you to pay their buyer's agent's commission, but they're willing to pay the highest price out of anybody that's seen the home by a substantial amount. Or maybe they're willing to buy it completely as is. Or maybe this is the only real offer that you've actually gotten. And what this means is that if this buyer doesn't buy it, the reality is the next offer you may end up getting could be $20,000, $30,000, even $50,000 less than this buyer. So sometimes giving a couple percent or trying to work with the buyer to help them with what they need to actually close the deal could actually mean you end up with $50,000 more than you would otherwise get if you had to go with buyer B that may not even be available right now. So this is why it's so important to be very calm and reasonable in a transaction, because this can often lead to you getting much more money than you otherwise would have got had you not been willing to give a little in order to get a lot in return. Now, the next main thing that you can do to really improve how much you get for your home is make cost-effective renovations where you end up getting more for them than you actually spent. And I have to say, this is a really tricky one that a lot of people fail at miserably, unfortunately, for a variety of reasons. It's very easy to get carried away with expensive upgrades and spend way too much money and never end up realizing that money back when you turn around and sell the home. And I've seen this over and over again through my career as a real estate broker, where sellers say, I'm going to spend $100,000 and I'm going to raise my price $150,000 and I'm going to make $50,000 on this renovation work that I did. And then it ends up turning out they don't even get the $100,000 that they spent back when they sell the home. And even worse, they never get compensated for all the time and the heartache and the brain damage and sometimes not having access or usage of their home while these renovations are taking place, in some cases for many weeks or even many months, depending on what work is being done. The truth is, the only way to really make this work is if you're getting a lot of bang for your buck for the work that you're having done. If you're just paying the same crazy inflated market prices that everybody else is, there's really no guarantee that you'll ever recover that. Oftentimes, a buyer won't like the work that you did, or they'll want to do something completely different anyways. Or in some cases, they'd rather just buy the house for a much lower price and then do the work themselves over time in a taste and style that they prefer. And that way they can get their foot in the door for a lower cost and a lower payment. And then as they make money over time, they can do the renovations. That all said, if you have access to discounted work, or maybe you're in the construction industry, or you have a family member that can do the work for you, or you're very budget conscious and can really squeeze out some really nice work at a reasonable cost, then absolutely this can be a way to really maximize how much you sell for, and a lot of times make an ROI or a return on your investment for doing this work. A couple examples would be, maybe you can replace all the doorknobs and the hinges and all of the electrical outlets and the cover plates and the cabinet knobs in the kitchens and bathrooms. And for a relatively small amount of money, this can really improve the overall look and feel and make it feel a lot more modern. And this can ultimately lead to a much higher sales price. Or making some visually appealing painting decisions can also really increase the feel of the home when somebody's in it, make it look a lot brighter and make it feel more premium. And for a small amount of money, you can often get a multiple of that back when you sell the home. So you really want to weigh the costs and the benefits of any improvements that you make and really make sure that you're going to be able to recover and hopefully have a return on investment on the money you put in. It's very common that a seller already wants the absolute top of the market for their home, and then they think that if they spend a whole bunch of money at inflated market prices to do improvements on top of that, that they're going to somehow make a return on those big improvements that they do. And that's just not the case. Every market really tops out at a certain sort of price point, and you don't want to be somebody that's $100,000 or $150,000 over where the comparables have sold recently, because it is extremely unlikely that anybody's going to come along and pay that much more for a home. And even worse, it's going to be very difficult to get the home appraised for that value anyways. So you're really shooting yourself in the foot by doing that. Now, the last one may seem a bit controversial, but let me tell you, it's probably the most important one on the list. And that one is, don't overprice the home from the get-go. Especially right now in a soft market or where prices are falling, this is a nail in the coffin. If you are overpriced, the market is going to know it. They are looking at every single home that's on the market. They're probably writing offers on homes. And if your home is way above where it should be, nobody is going to buy it. And then what is going to happen is it's going to sit on the market and people are going to think there's something wrong with it. And then if you do get offers, they're going to be what are known as low ball offers. So they're going to come in way below where other similar homes are currently at, just because the perception is that something's wrong with the home. And then you're just going to be reeling and just trying to get back to where you otherwise could have been, which would have been fair market value. And in some cases, you may be lucky to even get that. In addition, if you do get somebody into escrow on one of these lowball offers, they're going to be much more likely to cancel for any number of reasons, and they're going to be a lot more stringent on repairs and credits and their demands when they find stuff wrong with the property, which they inevitably will. Prices have been falling in many areas and days on market is rising. There's a lot of inventory on the market, and many buyers have the perception right now that waiting is going to help them either get lower interest rates or lower prices. So the best way to make sure that you don't fall into this trap is to make sure that you price the home where at least one buyer is going to want to quickly write an offer, and even better, more than one. If you get multiple buyers interested in the property and writing offers early, it is going to create a perception of value. They're going to be excited about the purchase and the transaction. They're going to be willing to pay more, and they're going to be much more likely to close the deal and not beat you up for repairs or credits once they're in escrow. Also, the statistics prove that the longer that you sit on the market, the lower the home sells for. So getting the pricing right up front or adjusting reasonably quickly as necessary to make sure that you're in the range where you need to be to get some serious action will ultimately lead to you maximizing your final sales price, not hurting it, which many people incorrectly believe. So guys and girls, I want to hear from you guys. So let me know in the comments down below what other ones I missed. I had so many in my head that I wanted to share with you, but I didn't want the video to go on forever. So I just included some of the top picks. But let me know in the comments down below which ones you think are most important in maximizing your sales price. I appreciate you guys watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you on the next video. Take care.